Community Hour Season 2 kicks off today with Carolyn Zick. Few notes of housekeeping, looking for a good book. Don't miss Adrian's new book, The Accidental Community Manager. Lots of benefits. Hopefully I'll see him in Vegas next week. Another really cool book is Fans First from Jesse Cole. Check it out. Not enough people are reading this. You can even read it upside down. This is Blake coming to you live from the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas. It's 8:05 in the morning here on a Friday. It's super hot. I'm like dreaming to be like with Matt Meckham up in London, where he says he has to turn on the heat, things like that. Today we've got a very special guest to kick everything off with. They were also at CMX Summit recently that had Pablo speaking, singing the Piano Man, Lori Goldman doing some Web3 talks and so much greatness. So we'll talk about that early on. So if you just want to hear about some cool CMX stuff, you can definitely do that over in the chat. Say hi, ask questions, talk to us throughout the show. We are here to engage with you and so forth. There's too many of these shows where nobody talks. Just two other notes. We've got lots of cool upcoming guests throughout season 2. So just stay tuned. I think I've got the man out of Florida, Jeffrey Rowe himself, who's been an awesome resource for Salesforce Experience Cloud stuff. We got him coming up here pretty soon. Lots of other amazing speakers, so be on the lookout for that stuff. I did join Plex since the last season, so I'm over here at the Plex community. It is private, so it's not a public one, so you can't see it, but it's great to be over at Plex Systems. There's another Plex, which we don't talk about, but this is Plex Systems, a great team there. So many awesome teammates. And just kind of last before we bring Carolyn up to the stage, it's definitely crazy times. So a lot of people are asking, hey, how do I make my community recession proof? And there's really probably no such thing as recession proof. But what I would say for everybody out there today, don't take anything for granted in terms of alignment with your other departments and teammates. And don't take anything for granted for how you're reporting metrics, how you're reporting your wins, big and small. Like your small stuff matters too. So just if you don't have that fire under you today, just start thinking like, after this thing right now, or making some notes like, hey, how do I better communicate out the success we're having, big and small, or the metrics we have today, making sense? Do these metrics roll back into overall company priorities, initiatives, and just take a hard look at that and think of all the ways that we can do some amazing stuff. And hey, remember to have some fun in your community. Maybe do like, a thank you drive campaign, that customer appreciation day or week or month, that sort of 1 month, that 1 week or 1 day where you can just have a blow out thank you community members, right? So just remember to give your community members some love and things like that. So without further ado, this is Blake out here at the Las Vegas entertainment capital of the world, where I don't spend or gamble, but I have lots of fun anyway. And we'll be bringing up our special guest, Carolyn Zick, to the stage to talk to us today for about an hour. And don't forget to use the chat. All right, Carolyn, how's it going?
It is awesome. Thank you for the wonderful introduction and great points about not taking anything for granted with your community. That's such a huge thing.
And so we are here today to celebrate Carolyn Zick and learn from them. So just be sure to buckle up because here we go. And a few notes on Carolyn. So Carolyn is a social marketer and community builder who is obsessed with building meaningful relationships. She is the founder of Bad Axe Enterprises. So if you saw that Axe stuff, you're like, what is this Axe about? Bad Axe Enterprises, which is a social marketing company. Also the director of marketing for Communify, a SaaS startup in the community data industry, and co-founder of Amist, a micro-media company, an online creative ecosystem for Midwest creatives. Maybe they have 20 other jobs, but that's enough for one person, I think. And like I said, they were recently at the CMX Summit. And the fun facts that we had, besides all that exciting stuff, they live in the middle of nowhere, similar to me, and design work for fun, which I don't do. And so without further ado, let's just jump into that first kind of talking point, right? So let's talk about the skills and hear from you that correlate between organic social marketing and community building.
So that is something that, I mean, like Adrian, you plugged his book earlier. The title of that is really apt for most of us in the community industry, being an accidental community manager. That is totally what I experienced. I have 7+ years working experience as a social marketer, and accidentally becoming a community manager was a really, really easy transition for me because so many of these social marketing skills fit right in with community. One of the biggest things that I have learned in this approximately year and a half that I've been a professional community manager is that when you're using social media to build an audience of any type, even if you don't have a community yet, start modeling behaviors that you want from your community. How do you want them to interact with you, with your brand? How do you want them to interact with each other? Do you want them to be sharing and collaborating? Give them opportunities with your social media content to start doing that. Everything that I do with social media is super organic focused. I don't like paid ads, not into that kind of stuff. So building things that are driven by relationships, that's like 100% of what I do with social media. So going into community, which is driven by relationships, it made a ton of sense. I see
All right. And we get our first little comment here. So Tim McDonald says, authenticity is a key in building relationships. Community is built on relationships. And a lot of people in community are can be snobby at socials, like, oh, they get the post, but they can never get the engagement.
No. It's really funny to me, like coming into the community industry. I attended CLIX back in April, and that was the first community event I went to. And then I went to CMX just this past month or September. And it was interesting to me to see where people who've been in this industry for 10, 20 years, where their thoughts were and what their opinions were on social media, because it runs the range. Like some people in community are like, social media is the entry to community, which is what I feel. And then some people are like, social media is an audience. You can never build a community there. And I'm like, well, that is super false. But those are hot takes. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of just kind of, for me, it's just kind of almost by default or by chance, because every career journey is like like this curves and winds that you never see. It's not like this linear path. I'm going to be here and all that stuff. And so I've kind of had these opportunities to be on organic social and so forth. And it's kind of interesting bringing the community skills back. But it's the difference for me, almost in mindsets and some of the corporate teams where it's like, they look at social media more as a press release channel of just one and done, put stuff out. So in those cases, there's definitely teams, right, that aren't caring about like audience, community building stuff there. It's just another place, like an email, blast stuff out like that megaphone that we always talk about. So it's just great for you, hearing from you about you get this awesome YouTube channel. You're talking about organic social media, know your audience, things like that. Because so many brands, right, it's like putting out this content and you're like, this doesn't make any sense for who they're trying to reach. And it's like, what in the world? They're trying to tank tops for people in Alaska. Really? What's going on here?
Yeah, totally. And something too, like I've seen people who have really, really successful social media presences and absolutely not reaching any of their business outcomes. And it's because they're talking to the wrong people. So they have an amazing social media presence, great engagement, great comments, all this stuff, and they're not booking any calls. They have no new clients. And one case study I'm thinking of in particular was about 5 years ago. It was a medical professional that wanted new patients, and they had all this action on their social media pages and this great community with people commenting and chatting and having all these different discussions. And they had no new clients, and they called me and we were taking a look at it, and I was like, all of the comments, all of the conversations, all of this great stuff that was happening was other medical professionals. So they had built this really great, really vibrant peer-to-peer community which was not their goal. Like if that was their goal, they were killing it, which it wasn't. They wanted more patients, which those other doctors, professionals, and providers were not their potential patients. So we kind of flipped the script and assessed like, okay, we need to take the jargon down like 10,000 notches. We need to start at the basics. Why would people choose to come to you? And build relationships that way. And I'm happy to say 5 years down the road for them, they have a really, really great full book of patients and excellent social media presence that speaks to those people. And it's a community. It is, because they're getting referrals, they're bringing people in for knowledge and different things like that. And it all exists on their social media, on their Instagram and Facebook pages.
Wow, it's an amazing case study. And then we've got Juan down in Colombia with a question. Let's get that up. Juan wants to know from you, do social media allow many-to-many communication channels?
That's a good question, because it can be tricky to kind of consider how, because right, social media platforms are built for kind of one-on-one conversations initially, right? Like when social media was first coming out, it was you put out content, you have comment conversations, things like that. So when you're thinking about building your social presence and modeling behaviors that are many-to-many communications, the way that you're probably going to want to go in today's environment for social media is live stream, right? Bringing people up on stage with you that are in the chat to ask questions to guests, like, Blake is doing here. It's still somewhat broadcast, but you can utilize social media to develop conversations between your potential community members. Giving really good talking points and modeling behaviors in your comment section on any platform is another really great way to kind of get that many-to-many communication happening. Encouraging connections between your followers, making introductions, just, those things that we do in community. You can do those on social media as well. It's not exactly the same as a many-to-many community communication.
Yeah, there's more than one ways to use all these amazing tools. And just for everybody that is joining, we did plug Adrian has a new book, The Accidental Community Manager, which could probably be a lot of our hype songs and origin story songs, things like that. So be sure to check it out. Get it for Halloween, put it out on your book stop for everybody stopping by to get a copy of this book, or pick it up for holiday presents, Thanksgiving. Just start handing it out to people at the parking lots. Don't forget to get Adrian's new book, The Accidental Community Manager. All right. So one of the exciting things that I saw Lori, who's one of the speakers at CMX Summits that you just got to do, and it's great to get your perspective on, and you've got an amazing video, I'll put a link to that, is just for those of us that didn't get to go, like, tell us about your first CMX Summit experience. And not only that, just kind of for that kind of experience, because we've had like 2 years where everybody's been like hidden in caves, right? We couldn't get out in person, and Zoom and all that stuff is great, but it doesn't beat like in real life.
Right. So I talk about this in the YouTube video that you're going to share a link to, but kind of like backing up a tiny bit, a lot of my perspective on CMX is really impacted by what happened to me in April. So in April, I had the opportunity to go to CLIX, CLIX, in the Memphis Convo Center, right? I'd never been to Memphis, so I was excited about that. That opportunity presented itself through one of my many hats, my community manager position with Amidst Creatives of the Midwest. So we're a creator economy ecosystem for Midwest creatives, right? So the co-founder got access to this conference. We won tickets to it through Mighty Networks. And she was like, "You want to go?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds fun." And showed up, had no idea that community manager or director of community or director of community engagement was a title. Was shocked to discover that people had been community builders for 30 plus years. People had been doing it. You're like, I know the internet is for community. Like, that's why we invented it. That's why we want it. And to see that there are like major corporations that really put focus on it, and to learn from the people who are in those positions, I was like shook at CLIX, because like I had no idea that any of this was on a corporate scale possible. So I spent most of my time in Memphis just being like, oh, this is like no big deal. I'm sitting with the director of community at Pinterest. Like I'm going and hearing from Christina from HubSpot, like Adrian was there, like all these people that I'm like, everybody else is somewhat starstruck. And I'm just like, what's happening? So I had several months to learn and grow and make these connections and all these different things and get hyped about CMX. So going to CMX, I was really, really excited and also kind of nervous because I thought CLIX was so good and it was so eye-opening for me. I was like, okay, if CMX isn't as eye-opening or if it's like more of the same, which would still be great, if it's not like exceeding my already high expectations, I'm gonna be really bummed out. And I wasn't. It was amazing. It was wonderful. Getting to see people I had met in Memphis was really lovely. Getting to meet new people that I'd kind of like networked with online was nice. The presentation on the ground, like how everything was built, obviously Bevy and CMX did a really good job of fostering community. I'm a huge fan of hybrid, and I feel like there were some missed opportunities with their virtual options because I had friends that weren't able to attend and they were going to the virtual and connecting with them about what their experience was. I was bummed out that there wasn't more integration. But getting to meet people like Tim and David and Lori, who are here in the chat today, which was really, really cool. It was neat. I think there was a lot more emphasis at CMX on moving forward into a in-person focused world for community, which also, like, the more I've reflected on, I also find that to be a bit of a bummer because a lot of these events, these types of things, they happen in Vegas, they happen in San Fran. I live in the Midwest. There are community events in the Midwest, but they don't, it's rare, right? There's no CMX chapter near me. Like there's no Communiteers chapter anywhere near me. Like there's one in Atlanta, which is, 10 hours drive plus from where I live. So definitely having trepidation about seeing a lot of people being so amped about in person being the focus, and feeling like I'm in a market that will be forgotten for some of those things. It's a little bummer. But yeah, other than that, like really great speakers. Access to the speakers was lovely. Being able to chat with people and just having opportunities to network, always amazing. But yeah, more friendliness towards virtual is my biggest hot take. I want to see more of that integrated.
Yeah, and they kind of, I don't know how they position it, but they have like a whole like chapter program for CMX Connects. And so they've got chapter leaders, chapter programs, like Juan does Columbia, Lori does like Colorado, and they've got ones like all over, and everything's like virtual now. So you can pretty much go anywhere. Even like Columbia is amazing because I've been to speak there. So you can almost like, there's so much, even though you don't speak the same language, there's so much universal stuff that you can still hold conversations. So that's like amazing. Was there like one or two talks? Was like Priya Parker, Lori? I think you skipped Pablo's karaoke, but was there any like kind of speakers or any kind of like serendipity kind of straight?
I've got Pablo's hat.
Straight from the streets of content.
Straight from the streets. Yeah. I always have the debate, is it content or is it content? It depends what the mood is. But yeah, this is the Be the Stage hat. I didn't get to go to karaoke. The speakers that I think I've been reflecting on most or had the most excitement about leading up to it were definitely Priya Parker. I read The Art of Gathering at the height of the lockdown. I moved in the middle of the lockdown. So I was moving to be closer to family and, 3 hours from where I'd previously lived. So there was this whole feeling of like, I can't even say goodbye to my friends that I made, like when we were living. up in Wisconsin, and now I'm moving to Illinois, which is where I grew up, but to a community that I didn't grow up in. So I can't even meet people. And then in the middle of all of these emotions, I'm reading Art of Gathering and just crying through the whole thing. I'm a huge extrovert, which might be shocking. But I really, her book was really meaningful to me and had a lot of just interesting case studies. I mean, she has, in the beginning of the book, there's a whole discussion about setting up a courtroom in a different way to achieve justice, and social justice is very important to me. So I was really excited that she was the keynote, and I really wanted to hear a lot of her insights as a gatherings professional about, post-pandemic, like what's the state of gathering? Like, what's happening? What is she seeing? She has so much expertise. And I thought her speech, her discussion was just really lovely, everything I expected and more. I'm really excited to go back and re-listen to other talks that I was really into. Lori's was amazing. Obviously, I've been doing a lot of research on Web3 and what it means for community with my work as director of marketing at Communify. Obviously, we're data aggregation software. We care about Web3. So Lori's insights on that. The panel on DEI with, I'm going to forget half of the members of the panel, so I won't even try to name it, but that one was really insightful. I wish there was more time to hear from those people. That was really great. I think my other favorite session, again, we're just talking about not absolutes, right? not speaking in absolutes. One of the other sessions that I really enjoyed was hearing from Whitney Knight, who I met in Memphis and had lunch with there. And she was talking about not her career, her professional career work. She was speaking about a startup that she had just kind of embarked on in the last year, which was very meaningful to me because it was about women and networking and how to, as women in business, ask for what we need and really actively pursue ways to make our businesses more successful. So I really enjoyed hearing what she was up to. Just, she's a friend, so it was cool to hear from her. But so many sessions that were great. Watching the replays were incredible. Some of the virtual sessions that I didn't attend, like Todd and Yuri and Ilker, all had amazing sessions that were just incredibly powerful. Like, there wasn't really a session where I was like, that wasn't great. I mean, they did a good job stacking the lineup and making it hard to choose what to go see in real time.
All right. And then so outside of these kind of sessions and events, like the side we don't get to see in the hallways or the parties or meetings, or is there any kind of outside of all the speaking, was there some magic moments we missed that you kind of want to spike out, or anything that kind of jumps out there?
Yeah. So, I mean, as a Midwesterner, anything where you can get people to be really competitive is, I mean, I don't know how many people in the audience or you, if you have familiarity with being in the Midwest. There's the Midwest nice, right? Like, we're pretty chill. We're pretty nice to each other, pretty friendly. We'll stop on the street and make sure you're okay if you look like you're in distress, that kind of stuff. Not super aggressive people. Stereotype. So seeing a cornhole or beanbag toss competition that was just kind of like a for fun thing in one of the breaks get turned into a bracketed event, I was like, this is so Midwest, because that is something that I have experienced in people's backyards. We're you're chilling with friends, you're having a beanbag toss, and the next thing you know, the entire party is focused on this knockdown, drag out beanbag brawl. I was like, oh, this is so great. I was joking with one of the people I was traveling with, because she doesn't look it. Stereotypes again. She's definitely very glamorous, but she is insanely good at beanbag toss. To the point where I was like, you should enter and just put everybody to shame. So that was a lot of fun. Just seeing that, that atmosphere was great. And the other thing was like getting to meet people in person for the first time. So meeting Lori was really cool. I met the founder of Communify. I met him very briefly in passing in Memphis, but we didn't really talk. And we started working together in the time in between CLIX and CMX. So getting to, we've met virtually and been working together for 4 months, but getting to actually sit down and like talk in person was really cool. Chatting with Adrian about his book was neat. And then just other people that I didn't even know before, made a lot of really great connections. And then ended up I was staying an extra day anywhere, 2 extra days anyways, but then getting bonus hours in San Francisco because our flight got messed up. And one of the attendees, Jessica, she was from San Fran. So it was super fun. She took us around and we went geocaching. Like, that's so random, but it was so cool. It was my first ever experience doing that. So like just really lovely memories because of a community that was supportive. So that was fun.
Nice. And who was the beanbag champion? You can't leave us.
I don't remember. So they had I didn't stay till the very end of it. So they had in the vendor tent, the beanbag toss the day before had gone really well. And then the next break, they had like made people get sponsors to like be their like underwriter of their team. So then I think it was the Orbit team won, but I don't remember for sure who was tossing bags for that.
Wow, going through an airport like someday in the future, there's going to be people in gold jackets, the beanbag champions from CMX Summit 2020.
Yeah, they've got the trophy with like the golden beanbag on top. Yeah, totally. I can see it.
Nice. Well, that's a great kind of recap of CMX Summit. We also put in the chat, you've got a YouTube video where you really go through it in detail. There's some video, pictures. Priya Parker book's amazing. And then we'll switch back into kind of the land of social media and community. And David has this comment, which is, he's been around for 24 plus years, which is a long time for sure. Lots of experience. And so he says there's a middle of the road where there is a middle, if I can read today, huh? There's a middle of the road there with social media, but it's hard to build connections between members while you're all shouting in a crowded room.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that takes intention and takes time to do. One of the platforms that I think, just because of my experience, I think it's the easiest to do on and to foster connections that like combat the crowded room vibe would be Instagram. Just because you have the access for most people, if their profile is set to public, you have the access to DM them directly. And you have the access to get them to chat with each other in the comments section. So that's, you're kind of like containerizing the experience versus being like, okay, I have all of these possible posts out there and there's all these millions and billions of posts out in the Instagram feed. Focusing on once people are engaging with your content, what can you do to build potential member connections or bring them to a space where it's easier to foster those member connections. That's how because it's overwhelming, right? Like social media is so vast. It can be super, super overwhelming to like kind of think about like, okay, I'm posting this. Is it going to be possible for me to connect to people who want to work together? If that's your goal, like, maybe not. But when you think about it on a smaller scale of like just the tiny actions that you can take and be like, okay, this post poses a really great question that people who want to work together may answer. And then once they're answering that question, if they're people that they're past followers or active users that you've recognized before from your content, start making those connections. One of my longtime followers is here in the audience today, Jen Smith. She and I met on Instagram, and we've been friends and supporters of each other's work for years now. So that's an example of relationships that you can build, and just focusing on those like one-on-one interactions, being present with what you're doing and always asking yourself, like, is this the behavior I want in my community?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
Tim,
yeah,
yeah.
for Jen said we actually met on Instagram, and Tim says the most important number is one, the person you are talking with right now. Too many focus on the big numbers and miss this.
Yes. And I am always cringing slash weeping a little bit when I see social media posts that are very clearly begging for new followers, right? Like you want new people. And then you go and you look at that brand's account and you're like, wow, they already do have followers and they're ignoring them. That's like, like you've been at a party, right? Where you're chatting with the host and you're so excited to have been invited and you're talking to them and they're just like looking at the door, like just waiting for the next person to show up. Or maybe they think that they invited somebody else that they'd rather see than you. And you can feel that vibe. Customers can feel that with brands online. They can tell that you're there only for the numbers and that that the brand just wants tons of eyes on it instead of the eyes that matter, right? Like if you have two people who are willing to give you $10 million, or if you have 10,000 people who are willing to give you $1, like what do you want? You want the quality people, and you're only going to get them by really digging in and talking to them and finding out what they need.
Yeah, no, I was like just in a party in Vegas, and they're like, "Oh, this one person's so excited to meet you, Blake," and then you go up, and they're just like looking over your shoulders. They're like, and so I always hate that, like when you're at places and you get that over the shoulder thing. And I think that's just a great point. Like even online, it's the same kind of thing, and people are smart enough, like, oh, okay, right?
You can tell.
Yeah,
You can tell. Like even in emails, right? Like email marketing or someone's website, how you position yourself online. Are you going to foster connections and champion potential members, potential buyers, potential whoever? Are you going to nurture and love them? Or are you going to be constantly like next sale, like begging for the next thing? Like it's way easier to get repeat business from people who love you versus developing new business. That takes way more time. Like ask any sales department. They will tell you.
yeah, I agree. And kind of one, since you're here today, like one of the interesting kind of dynamics in a lot of companies, there are teams where the community team and social media teams are often completely non-integrated, right? Completely different
Mhm.
partners, maybe different orgs, just all different types of things. But it's always great when these teams actually are aligned and work well together. A great example is Dynatrace, where you've got John Rocker leading social media. And then on the community side, you've got Carolyn, Linda, running things, and they've got this amazing harmony, things like that. But then in so many other places, it's like Montagues, Capulets, it's like two
Yes.
families that just kind of, for whatever reason, there's could be turf wars, things like this. So for the people here today, it's like, what are these opportunities? And maybe, some of the blockers you've seen, how do people get around it? Not necessarily absolutes, but just kind of in general, some things for what are some of these missed opportunities with community and social media teams working together, or maybe some common misunderstandings. Just, I'm sure you've seen some stuff, so just kind of interesting to kind of get your take. So I think it's just like with that kind of North Star for there's probably ways we can work together better that we're not today.
Mhm. Yeah, so I have another case study of something that crashed and burned because of, and it was a small team of departmental or role strife, I guess I'll say. So it was a cooperative model business, right? So everybody's funding works very different than different business structures, right? Cooperative model, like most funding decisions are made from the board, which is made up of member owners, so people who are invested in the cooperative as members, as well as staff, as well as past producers. It was an agricultural cooperative. And I was brought on as a marketing contractor and was in charge of social media. And part of my work was to, like, from the beginning, one of my roles was to develop influencer relations, right? Their products had this cult following on social media that nobody internally was capitalizing on. And some members of the team knew that they were sitting on this gold mine, and that's why I was hired. And other members of the team thought that they shouldn't have a web presence at all. So obviously that makes a really big rift. So moving forward, and I worked with them for a little over a year, one of the things that I really strove to do is I talked with, it was like a 10-person team, so you could talk to everybody. I talked with their sales department of 2, of like, hey, who is constantly buying this stuff at scale? Like, who are the biggest buyers on the wholesale side and then on the direct to consumer side? Give me those lists. Do they have social media presences? Tons of the wholesale side did, right? Like their co-ops, their food stores, their restaurants, and they're buying these products at scale, like big scale. And we're never shouting them out. Like, we're never talking to them and asking them, like, what else do you need from us? I reached out individually to a bunch of restaurants that were buying the products at scale. And I was like, hey, what items on your menu are you using the products for? Like, we didn't even know. We had no idea, like, what they were purchasing the products to use them in. Like, we had a good idea. Like, you could kind of guess the product was something that, like, there are some general uses of that are like, yeah, that's pretty universal. But a lot of the restaurants had these really, really creative uses for the products that we weren't talking about at all. And we had this community of restaurants that could have been sharing tips, sharing recipes, sharing ideas on how they're marketing the fact that they're using our products. And then we could provide, because the restaurants had questions. They're like, okay, so how does your organic certification work? How is the grading of your products done? They had questions about nutrient levels in some of the products. And I'm like, we have all that information. Like, we could just give it to you. And it was just conversations that were never had. So when we started doing this, and I was working really closely with the sales department of 2, the operations and shipping department started getting irritated for unknown reasons. And so then I had a conversation with them. I was like, hey, what do you want people to know about these products? And they're like, oh, so you can do that with social media? You can inform people that, like, when they're getting these products shipped, that's how they should store them, or this is why we choose this sort of packaging. I was like, yes, that's what social media is for. It's educating people about what makes things so awesome that we're selling. Then eventually it became this war of who got to use the social media platforms for what. And then it became fragmented because nobody had the clear vision of, like, all of these different sub communities: wholesale, direct to consumer, influencers, food bloggers, like all these different people, all of them make up a big community that we can still talk to through social media. But we need to be, really strategic about the sub communities, and we need to develop direct conversations with those off of social media. No, absolutely not. So that didn't go well. And they're still very fractional in their marketing. They'll have a post that's, hey, wholesalers, do this. And then they'll have one that's like, if you're at home, use our products to do this. And it's super scattered, and it's a bummer because they had this really great community that they could have developed interdepartmentally together as a team, as a cooperating, and they didn't. So that's like a missed opportunity, kind of a sad story, I guess.
Yeah, so don't be a missed opportunity and a sad story. So that's a great case study. And one other thing that's kind of, for me, like, it's kind of annoying. So I sound like a cranky New Yorker for a second, but out here, like, there's a lot of, like, these quote unquote social media influencers where people are like, oh, I love your content so much. But in the copy, like, creative's everything, right? The photo, the video, or whatever they're doing there, that's always great. And it's kind of an art to get that right. But in the copy, I've seen so many people, I don't know if it's laziness or madness. And when I look at the copy, it's like this mad lib of just, like, they were just throwing everything against the wall of random hashtags. Some of them are kind of, like, appropriate, relevant. A lot of them are like, what? And there's kind of just random, like, maybe tagging the people that are in the photo video, but it's just this
Mhm.
kitchen sink spaghetti where just everything is just like, and I'm like, what is this? Like, and so for, the creative is kind of like its own thing. But in terms of social media copywriting, are you seeing like brands and people doing this? What is this like just complete mess of copy that I'm seeing? And even sometimes like on Instagram, I see people put in like all this weird text everywhere. It's like more like,
Mhm.
it's just all over the place. I'm just like, what is this madness? And I've got Carolyn on the show. Help it, like, as kind of a Dr. Phil, as an Oprah, like, help, like, what is this madness that I'm seeing, Carolyn, and why are people doing this? And what should people be doing for their social media copy?
So with social media copy, right, it's very fad based to a degree. So I've seen in my time as a social marketer it go from like Instagram captions should be super short, Facebook captions should be super long, flip flopping, like all these different experts with all their different things. And like some platforms, like Twitter, like they have a character limit. TikTok just raised their character limit massively for their video descriptions, which is a whole, I have a YouTube video about that too, where I have my rants about, does it matter? Does it not? What does it mean for SEO? But with caption writing, even if it's like particularly trendy to write it in a certain way or to have it stylized in a certain way, and what you're describing, I'm like, really, it could be something that people are doing to kind of be funky and try to stand out and look different visually, right? Like, having all the links and having all the different emojis or glyphs or things like that, or doing different fonts. Like you can copy paste different fonts into the Instagram captions so it looks stylistically different. um, some of that could just be to try to differentiate. But my take, and like maybe I'm old now, elder millennial or something, but my take is always, and this goes back to my background in design, if you can't read it, it's never going to do anything good. I just gave a talk 2 days ago at a women's business conference about using Canva for design. And I'm like, just don't use a script font for a social media post. Like, we can debate this endlessly. Like, sure, it's cute, but like at 2 inches by 2 inches on most phones, like, are you going to be able to read a script? No, you're not most of the time. And then you talk about like language barrier or alt text and like readability through adaptive software. Like script fonts are hard to decipher for things like that. So that's the same for captions. If you're putting in a bunch of garbage, I think it's really disrespectful to people who have learning differences or use adaptive software because it won't read to them. So one of my biggest things is like, I mean, it's been in the news lately too. Like Nike got sued, their website wasn't ADA compatible. Your social media captions are probably not going to get you sued for ADA compatibility, but why would you want to alienate a huge percentage of the population? People use adaptive software to read the captions and alt text on your social media posts is way more common than you think. People with dyslexia struggle to read things that have a lot of glyphs or contain a lot of links or hashtags back to back. And there's tons of resources online to kind of see how to optimize any sort of content to be the most accessible. But at the end of the day, like if your stuff doesn't clearly give people the next step to loving your brand more or joining your community or being more involved with the outcome that you're trying to achieve, why are you doing it? If you want to look cool and trendy and that's your only outcome, okay, but I don't see it. That's my 2 cents on it. I'm like, I'd rather go with readable, actionable over anything else.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. So it's like all that work for creative, but people have no idea kind of what you're saying. So the
Mhm.
message is lost. So when I look at it, it's like abstract social media art. Maybe they're trying to give someone a shout out, all the rest, and it's like 2 seconds scrolling. So it's like that clarity of the story. What am I trying to say? Does it need to be 2 sentences, 3 sentences, or just like 2 words or one? It's, and
Mhm.
when they get too clever, people have no freaking clue. Like what's that message? And it's like when it's like when you're walking somewhere and somebody stops you and you just realize they're talking gibberish. Pink
Yeah.
sweater, red sweater, yellow light, red. It's like it
Mhm.
has the same kind of effect, and it's just kind of like disappointing, like on the learning that you mentioned. But then brands are trying to like communicate something, and all that work is lost when you get too off road or try to get too clever. I have absolutely no idea, but just some amazing points there, and also kind of while you're here today. So there's so much going on right now with the economy, things like this. And so now it's like for a lot of teams have to start looking, are we reporting kind of our performance, our metrics, our wins kind of in a meaningful way, right? We need to make
Right.
sure that everybody knows our social media and community efforts are great. So in your kind of time, what are maybe just a few things that you think might help out other people, like during a, kind of a time like this when there needs to be more of an emphasis on that clarity, just like we were just talking with social media posts, but with the reporting, like how we're doing like small wins, which could be like a quick
Mhm.
thing of just a conversation, social media, like a pull quote to actual like metrics. So with that kind of social media community in mind and kind of your experience, what are maybe some few things like people could do today either to look at or maybe like a just a tip or trick?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm getting more and more into this world. Anyways, I grew up, my mom was an accountant, so I love math. Um, I think I'm maybe one of 3 humans on the planet. I've met some other people that like math. But so data and reporting and numbers have always been important to me, just in from the standpoint of, like, you don't know what you're doing if you don't know what you're doing. Like, um, so looking at social media analytics, what the platforms give you is typically purely vanity metrics. Your follower count, your growth rate maybe could be considered not vanity, the growth rate. Follower count, pure vanity. But growth rate, that could be insightful depending on your goals. Likes are absolute garbage. How many times have you accidentally liked a post? Like, we have all done it. So that means nothing. Any sort of reaction where it's a one click, it can be like a very lukewarm temperature gauge, but really not useful. Same thing within community, upvotes, things like that. Like, sure, like that can help you see, especially like in a forum based community, what's trending, what's happening, what people are reacting to. The deeper numbers come from an aggregated sense of across all platforms, not just in your community, not just in your social media. Where is this person interacting with my brand across all platforms? What level of weight does that person's interaction then hold going forward? So if you can't analyze cross-platform, which currently there are a lot of community intelligence platforms and softwares that exist, but they're for the enterprise level. Cost-wise, not accessible. In my work with Amidst, it's creators, it's artists, it's one-person teams that are doing everything. In my work with Bad Axe, a lot of my clients are family-owned businesses or community organizations. Like, a team of 10 was a pretty big team for me, 4 years ago. Like, that was huge that I was working with, and that was the whole company. And seeing that the software isn't available at the smaller scale that gives people really quick and insightful ways to look at a holistic picture of where people are interacting with their brand is one of the big things that led me to having conversations with John, because he was talking about what he's doing with Communify, and that's what we're building out. It's something that allows a more overall view of things that aren't vanity, that give you an aggregated look at stuff. So while that software is still in development, and before everybody runs and signs up for Communify, shameless plug, I would suggest, if you're looking at cross analysis of like social media performance plus community performance, how do they talk to each other? How do they interact? It's going to be pretty labor intensive to start with. The best thing you can do is start tracking conversations. That's going to be the number one thing. Whatever CRM you're using, whether it's Salesforce, HubSpot, something else. I use Honeybook for most of mine for my business. Or a spreadsheet, just a basic spreadsheet. Put in who you have commenting on your posts. If they're meaningful, right? Like bots, we ignore, we block, and we report. But like if they're meaningful comments, we're like, wow, that was really insightful. Or that spiked a big conversation that happened with other members. Document them. And then cross-reference that information if you can. And then if that person is having repeated, meaningful conversations, set up a one-on-one call with them. I've done this within my own community. When I have people who are really active on my social media, and then they join my community for my brand, Bad X Biz Club, and they're really active over there, I want to know what's making them tick. I want to see what their needs are, what they care about, all those things, because that conversation is going to be worth so much money to me. Like that's market research that big brands pay billions of dollars in surveys to do when it could happen with a 10-minute phone call. So looking at conversations is the number one thing, especially if you're building community. Look at who's talking to you and to each other. What are they saying? How can you ask for more insight about that?
Awesome. That's so great. And then looking ahead to 2023, no absolutes, but what is just kind of like one kind of trend? Doesn't have to be a big one, but what
Okay.
is like just the first thing to your mind, maybe of just one trend in social media community that people should be thinking about or talking about?
Video. Everybody's talking about it already, a lot, I think. But using video as a tool for thought leadership and development of community. I think a lot of community pros are already looking that way. But I also see so many that are still very forum based, very entrenched in text based communication, which is totally fine and exists for a purpose. Like I think of case deflection communities, right? Like support communities. Text makes sense for that, right? But video, David, video killed the blogger. That's one of my favorite songs. Is Video Killed the Radio Star. So that thank you for pulling that reference. No, I don't think it has killed anything. I think it happens in conjunction with it. I think they go together. One of our audience members, if she's still plugged in here, Jen, she has a really, really vibrant YouTube about food and food blogging and things like that. And then she also has a blog presence. They sync together so beautifully. It's amazing. With software and tools like Descript for editing videos, you upload a video, it creates a transcript, you edit like a transcript, you pull that off, you make it a blog post. People learn in such different ways that it's super, super important to make it accessible. So Jen just weighed in. She said, yes, video has actually helped her blog. So that's something that she and I have chatted about before too, of like, when you're using diverse types of content, it's going to help all of your content. So I see that moving forward, there's going to be more tools that come out like Descript, like copy.ai, like all these different things that exist to make it easier for content creators, right? The people that are going to stand out are the ones who are already good at it, and make personal connections a part of the content creation process, right? Super fast to use like Storyblocks or any of those tools to make a stock video and combine just clips, free clips that exist, make a powerful YouTube video, have it overdubbed, put it up, takes 10 minutes less for some types of videos. And then what? Like that's a stock video. If you're creating those videos, getting a lot of traction, that's great. You're probably going to get viewership and that's fine. What's the next step? People don't buy from robots. People buy from people. So if you're a content creator and you're using AI tools to make your work easier, good for you. Use the time that you're saving to spend on people. Invest that directly into who's watching your video, leaving more meaningful content or comments, replying directly to emails, emailing people one-on-one, DMing people, getting people into your community through personalized invites and shout outs. Whatever tools you're using to make your content creation easier, that time should be reinvested in people.
Great. And as we start to wrap up, a whole hour has flown by. Before we get to the lightning round questions, where can people, since we are celebrating all things Carolyn Zick today, our first guest of season 2 of the Community Hour, where can people see you next? What should they know? What exciting things do you have coming up? Are you speaking anywhere else today, upcoming? What are the ways that people should be able to, like, I love everything Carolyn said, I want to stay in touch. Is there any other cool talks that they are doing or anything else that we can find out about them?
Yeah, I'm going to be jumping in. I'll probably be a little bit late, but I'm going to be jumping into Tim and David's community manager live later today. Adrian is going to be on and chatting about his book. So I'm going to be jumping in there to kind of ask questions and hang out with them. But I mean, if you're watching the recording, the best way to reach out to me is in my community. It's free to join. It's called Bad Axe Biz Club. I'll drop a link for Blake and he can include it in the show notes as well. But it's a space for business owners and community builders to be organic with their social presences, develop really impactful and intentional strategies that don't disrespect your mental health in the process. That's very important to me. So that's the best way to kind of get plugged in and chat. I have YouTube videos that go up, but typically I am posting that content to the community first. If you have questions, like email me, carolyn@badaxenterprises.com. I'd love to hear from you about anything, community, arguments with stuff I've said today, social media, your hot takes on using Descript, whatever. Like, I welcome those conversations. And I'm super, super grateful, Blake, for letting me be the kickoff of this awesome new season of the Community Hour.
Oh, yeah, thanks. And it's great for people to know. We got a few lightning round questions that maybe we'll take one
I'm
more
ready.
question for the audience today. And yeah, I wish I could join other stuff. I am stuck in work meetings the rest of the day. So I've got like at least one good meeting with a community member. So it's going to be kind of fun to talk to them for a few hours. But I am stuck in meetings rest of the day. So this is my big fun other than talking to community members. So in the lightning round questions, these are fast and quick. So it doesn't have to be like an Oscar acceptance speech. Anytime you think, we've always got to thank Lori. Thank you, Lori. Lori's one of the amazing people that are out there and kind of the glue, does so much great work. So glad they were able to join us today. So lightning round question number 1. If you could meet the founder or creator of any social media company, who would it be and why?
I want to talk to the founder of Tumblr, and I want to talk about their development of the scroll feed, because I think they were kind of the origin of that and how Tumblr disrupted the sharing of content and cross-sharing of content, and also the anonymous Ask Me Anything box. That's who I want to talk to.
Nice. And then for lightning round question 2, who have you found to be the most inspiring person you've seen or heard or met or read about in community so far?
I know I read these before and I was thinking about them, but I think that one, we were talking about no absolutes.
Right.
That one is a really hard one to answer, but so far,
no pressure.
I've gone back and forth on this. So one of the people that I think has inspired me most in my social and community journey is Zaria, who is the head of social media at Duolingo, specifically in charge of their TikTok account. And she is significantly younger than me and speaks frequently about being a woman of color, being young in social media, and just taking risks and fucking up and owning that, like messing up big time, and how to do that with grace and how to continue to take risks. And Duolingo's TikTok account, if you don't follow it, it's unhinged and beautiful. And they are working really, really hard as a company to build a creator community of interlinguistic people, which to me, I'm a language nerd. I'm all about that. Like, I think that is so important as our world continues to get smaller and more interconnected. Using language as a tool to connect people is really powerful. And I think what she's doing specifically with the social media and the community presence of Duolingo is just huge. Like, she's one to watch for sure.
Nice. I'll have to check that out. And last, just a lightning round question. Any kind of cool songs, books, TV shows, movies, anything that's kind of like really kind of caught your attention of late that maybe people don't have it on their radars, but should, with it being Friday and the weekend and they have some downtime, maybe that's a song, book, TV show, or movie to listen to.
What's downtime?
Yeah, exactly.
The book that I'm reading, 2 books currently besides like books for work, right? Adrian is who I'm currently reading for work right now, accidental community manager. One of the books that I'm reading for fun is The Secret Lives of Color. It is a color theory book by Kassia St. Clair. It is really, really interesting. It goes through and describes the history of colors, the importance of colors in different branding and art and things like that. I'm a big art nerd, so I love that. And I'm also reading the Silmarillion with my best friend. We've been reading through the whole Lord of the Rings series, and I am really enjoying, for the first time ever, reading the Silmarillion. Don't watch The Rings of Power. That's my hot takes.
Do or don't watch it.
Do not watch it.
Oh, okay.
Just is. Oh God. If we have another hour, we could talk about how much of an abomination it is against Tolkien lore, but I don't think we have that kind of time.
Wow, that's a mic drop to wrap everything up today. But hey, it's great to have you on, kicking off season 2, and just kind of for hearing voices from really all over the world, right? You know, hearing your stories, kind of what you've been through, and kind of really, it doesn't matter too much like where you are in that journey, but just the perspectives, sitting down, listening to people, talking, having these conversations virtually and in person is like always so amazing. So if you're out there today and you just been working 8 hours a day and not talking to people, just hit the brakes this weekend. Go out, say hi to a high school friend, an elementary school friend, random stranger at the fruit aisle. Just go out there and remember to make these connections, not just in your business life, but in your personal life too, to have those moments of serendipity, let your hair down, all that stuff. But just aside from that, it was really amazing to get so much of your insights, perspective, and having such an amazing voice and social and community, which is kind of rare. It's a kind of a two-pronged thing, right? But it's great to really do that. And I just really hope that across this journey in the months ahead, you'll get many opportunities to speak and network and connect. And it's really a vibrant place with so many professionals out there. And it's great that you're a part of it and taking the time to share the knowledge that you have with everyone else. And I hope that everybody here will be following you at your club and your YouTube channel. And thanks to all our amazing people, David, Tim, Lori, and everybody, and Juan, and everybody that joined in chat today for making it season 2. But I'll let Carolyn, I'll let you end us out today with whatever you want to say to close us off.
It's about people. Remember that community is about people. Like Blake said, go make a friend with no preconceived notions. Set a meeting just purely to catch up. Ask people what their needs really are and listen. Like, make it about the people and everything's going to be successful.
All right. Mic drop. Have a great weekend, everyone. Friday.
Bye, everyone.
Great rest of the week. Great business meeting. Have the best business meeting, Zoom meeting of your life. The Zoom meetings of all meetings, the Microsoft Team meetings of all meetings. Have it be the most epic one, your Freddie Mercury moment today. So I'm wishing that for you. Thanks again, Carolyn, and thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.